pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda has been provided before the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, a couple things. Commissioner Wildermuth is gone today. He's at a funeral out of town. There was a death on his mother-in-law, and his son's wife's mother passed away, so he's in Roseville and will not be at the meeting today. As far as the business meeting goes today, I'd like to add under other business, please, I would like to add the flood task force as an approved committee of Pipestone County and authorize per diem for the commissioners that attend that, which in this case is Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Hollingsworth. I anticipate there may be more meetings involved in this, and I think that should be added to the list. I don't believe it'll be necessarily a constant one we'll have forever and ever and ever, but I think until we get issues taken care of, I think that we should have that in order, and so we can meet occasionally with our group of city, county, and other representatives of that as well.
Okay.
So that request a motion to that effect.
Okay. Are there any other additions or corrections?
With those additions, I'd move to approve the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Motion second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of the consent agenda, which includes meeting minutes of 10/8/19, auditor warrants of 10/11 and 10/18, hospital warrants.
I'd move for approval. Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up we have Lauren, is it Mellington? Mellington, all right. Close.
Thank you, and my name is Lauren Mellentine. I work at Southwest Health and Human Services. I am the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator there, as well as the Lyon and Redwood County Safe Roads Coalition Coordinator, and now our Lincoln and Pipestone Coalition Coordinator as well. I came today just to tell you a little bit about our grant for Lincoln and Pipestone Safe Roads. And the Towards Zero Death, their main goal in Minnesota is to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes by reducing speeding, distracted driving, and impaired driving, as well as increasing the use of seat belts. The Towards Zero Death grant is through the Office of Traffic Safety, and we work in conjunction with the law enforcement grant that funds enhanced enforcement waves. If you ever hear those radio commercials about enhanced enforcement going on, that's through the law enforcement grant for Lincoln and Pipestone County. And in 2018, the leading causes of deaths and severe injuries for Southwest Minnesota included the lack of seatbelt usage, impaired driving, speed and aggressive driving, and then inattentive driving, so just not paying attention while you're driving. The leading type of crash resulting in deaths and severe injuries included running off the road or intersection-related crashes. In the Lincoln and Pipestone County Safe Roads Coalition, we have a big coalition, and I'm actually very excited with our coalition. We have included the 4 E's, which we have said is enforcement, which is the Sheriff's Office, local police department, and the Minnesota State Patrol. We have engineering with city and county highway engineers, also MnDOT is available. And then the education, which is more of the public health part of it for the education. And then emergency medical and trauma services, which is ambulance personnel, other first responders, as well as hospitals and clinics involved. And we always say that the 5th E, which we really don't say is there, but we would like to say it's everyone else, because we all drive these roads. We know what's going on in our areas, so we also have a lot of different other people a part of our coalition. In our meetings, they're usually the first Monday of every month. It's just kind of how it lands differently every time, but we do it from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And the location, it changes between Lincoln County and Pipestone County. We try to have it In our last meeting in October was in, October was in Lincoln County, so then in December it'll be in Pipestone County, and we'll hold that at the Pipestone EMS building. For the 2018 to 2019 grant year for Lyon and Redwood County, a couple of the things that we did then was we held a mock car crash for the Marshall Senior High School. And there was a video made. I don't know if you guys have seen that at all, but it's very, very moving. And we hope to get that around for some of the schools in Lincoln and Pipestone County as well, because it just, when we can hit the teenage years, it makes a difference. Because if we can impact them at that time, then hopefully in their life as driving years, they make a difference on paying attention to the road and just not making those decisions that can hurt their lives and something like that. But we also were involved with the Southwest Minnesota State University. They have a big event called Hawaiian Night, and it's also a very big event because the students tend to get a little rowdy, but we wanted to make sure we got information out about safe driving and making sure to have that sober cab ride home. So we were at the bars and we hung up posters, and then we also went to the university itself and hung up a lot of posters there. And we have done Joyride, which is basically a taxi ride from the Redwood County Fair. So after the Thursday and Friday night of the Redwood County Fair, they had a rather big performer at that time, and there was a lot of attendees. So we brought Joyride to bring this, it was the safe ride home for people. And that was around 30 to 45 people, and this was our first year doing it. So I'm very happy with, at least there was 30 to 45 people for those both nights that were off the roads that could have made a difference if they were driving. We stay involved with the fairs at the counties as well. We were at Lyon County Fair and the Redwood County Fair, and we have a rollover simulator, which is basically simulating a rollover crash. And if you don't have your seatbelt on, what can happen to you during that crash. We also went to Farm Fest, which was huge because in our area of Southwest Minnesota, we have a lot of farmers. So that Farm Fest was great to talk with farmers, and especially about seatbelt safety, because a lot of the farmers don't tend to wear their seatbelts as much, and then the hands-free law that just went into play as well. We also have done a lot of radio interviews, just kind of, here's what the enhanced enforcement wave is right now, especially if there's DWI or distracted driving, and we stay on top of that. So this grant year for 2019 to 2020, it began on October 1st. So we are just fresh into this Lincoln Pipestone County grant. But we did go ahead and we created a Facebook page, and we have about 50 people that are following it so far, and we hope to gain more, just because if we can provide information online and we know people are reading it, it makes a difference. We had our first meeting on October 7th, and some of the things that we plan on working with is trying to get involved with more of the workplaces in Lincoln and Pipestone County. We want to bring the safe driving topics to them, especially if they have agency vehicles and they're going to be driving around during work time. Another thing is we're going to be working with schools in both of the counties. We want to see if we can get a mock car crash set up for some of the schools. Also, we have these big buckle up stencils, and what we have done is gone into the parking lots at some of the schools, and we put these stencils down that just simply say the message of buckle up. But it is a simple thing, but sometimes you don't remember it if you're driving with high schoolers or anything like that. And so this is just the first month that we've been in play, but I have a lot of hopes for this grant, and the participation that we have had has been amazing. And now with our next meeting being in Pipestone County, I'm sure it's going to be even better for attendance. But I'm always looking forward for more people to join our coalition as well. And if you guys ever have any recommendations, please let me know, because it's awesome to have you all. We all drive the roads, so we know the best things that are going to make a difference for our counties. But these are a couple examples of what we have hung up before. So this is a poster that we had hung up around all of the gas stations, and we also put it at the colleges as well as some of the bars around town. And it's just a good example because the DWI patrols happen during, the extra enhanced patrols happen during the month of December, which is the month of Christmas, so there's a lot of traveling going on. So we make sure to get those out. And then another thing that we did, it's kind of hard to see, but these are called buckle up stickers. And what we did with them is we went to a couple of the schools in Lyon and Redwood County, and I talked with the activities director, and when they hand out concessions of popcorn bags, they just stick that sticker on it, and then people kind of have a reminder of just make sure you stay buckled up. And so that's just a couple of the other things that we have done. But are there any questions for me?
I think you covered it pretty well. Go ahead, Steve.
Lauren, could you put me on your email list?
Yes,
For any
definitely.
information that's coming, I can share that with the commissioners. That would be
Yep,
great.
I sure can.
And Chairman Hollingsworth, you're on the committee, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, excellent. And
I mentioned too about reaching out to our school districts, about reaching out to Edgerton, Public and Christian too, and
Yep. A couple of the big workplaces too for
correct,
Pipestone.
correct.
I talked with Emergency Medical Service Director Casey last week, and she said they are planning to do a spring drill for a mock crash at the school. It's been a few years we did that, so I'm sure
Okay.
she'll be talking to you about that
Yep.
as well. We have had the rollover simulator at our fair over the years. I think it's been like 2 years ago we had it, so it'd be good to bring that back again. We didn't have it this last year, but I think see if we get Casey to bring that back. And I like the idea of a Facebook page on it as well, so that's great, good.
Lauren
Glad you guys
mentioned
are doing
about hoping to get to our county fair this year with something.
it. Yep, that'll be
I
great.
said we'd be able to work that out,
Yeah.
so.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up we have Wayne Drew, Building and Ground Supervisor. Morning.
Morning. Okay, a couple things. The fire panel at EMS has been acting up. And the company's out of the cities, and they just seem like they don't want to come down and fix it, but what it is the ground someplace ain't working quite right. And we've been kind of checking into updating it anyway, so I got 2 bids. Johnson Controls, which is Simplex Canal. They bid it at $99,500. And then I went to 3D Security, they bid it at $4173.60, but then you take off the tax, it'll be $3,905.12 for 3D Security to do it. They're basically doing the same thing.
Right. Okay,
They did give me a 25% discount.
is that what it was? Okay, that was a, yeah, pretty big difference there between the 2 bids.
Yeah, they were lower anyway, and they give 25% discount.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, a couple other items to go along with this. Back before I came here and got the job as the administrator, we were having troubles with that panel at EMS as well. And we had a total system failure of it where every sensor in the whole building went off at the same time and put the whole building into trouble mode. And at that time, talked to the Banco, which is the company that put it in originally when we built the building, and that unit is no longer manufactured. So there is no fix to it. So we're doing the right thing here. It needs to go.
Yep.
So it lasted since, unfortunately only 11 years, but
Then 3D Security
those
will be
things.
doing the check on it.
okay.
They'll be monitoring it, and then plus coming and doing the check on it.
mhm.
I think that was $360 a year for the monitoring, $360 a year to come and check.
About $720
Yeah.
per year for monitoring and service.
Do you know offhand if this was budgeted by EMS?
No, it was
No,
not.
it
This
wasn't.
is
It
not a
just-
planned
It just
expense.
come up,
Okay,
so we'll know it's not.
okay.
And both bids that would have a maintenance setup like that,
Yeah, Simplex Canals I know would be a lot higher.
yeah, I'm sure.
Theirs is like $800 just for family service, just to service it. And that's not the calling too.
Right.
I'm not sure what that is.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the low bid.
Second.
A motion second to approve low bid by 3D Security. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then I got 2 bids to replace the overhead door in the Quonset building off the fairgrounds. The door, the opener, 4 remotes and that keyless entry. And the low bid is out of Marshall for $2,530, and the other bid is $33.96 from Midwest. The only thing was American Door, I gotta hire construction guys to come in and reframe the whole door, which I don't know what's gonna cost. And Midwest Overhead Door, he's the one that services all of our doors here. Plus, we know that security-wise, that we can trust him. You know, we don't know about, you know, American Family, or American,
Midwest
garage.
overhead door out of Marshall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Midwest Overhead Doors out of Edgerton, and they're the ones that do the upkeep on all of our other doors. EMS and here, and,
Out of Marshall.
no,
Edgerton?
yep, that's Denny Schmidt. I recommend that we go with the higher bid for this one, 'cause I don't know what's
If
gonna
there's
cost.
framing
to
and
redo
stuff
this.
involved, you don't know exactly what the bid will be on the other one.
No, no, this bid here, I don't have to do anything.
Then you're over this bid then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they could be over that, this bid.
Right. It's all said and done. Okay.
Yep.
I'd move to approve the Midwest overhead door bid then.
Okay.
With second.
That's all inclusive in the deal.
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion second to award the bid to Midwest Overhead Door. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there is money in the fairgrounds budget to cover this expense.
Yes, yeah, there is,
Thanks, Steve.
there is. There's plenty of money in there for that. Okay,
Anything else? Anyone have any more questions for Wayne while he's here?
No, how about the trees? Are they gonna get trees taken out yet this fall, or some of
Yes.
those bad trees on?
soon as it freezes,
Okay. It's been pretty soft and wet.
Jim's gonna do it, and I know he'll do it, you know, so,
And maybe by spring you can get some grass seeded again and get.
Yep.
the larvae.
yep. Yeah, we will be taking
Down
them
this
out.
morning with that wind.
I haven't looked, it was dark when I come to work, so. I don't know, I seen there was one down at the fairgrounds,
Yeah.
otherwise, when I drove through there, but.
Sure.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up at 9:45, we have Kyle Career Zone Administrator, and he is not here right now. Is there any other business we can move ahead at this time?
Mr. Chairman, Nick Bergman is here. We can certainly do the bond agreements. Just take just a couple minutes. The only reason I put that on at 10:25, just in case you want to come back, and he'll be here at 10:30 for the MnDOT representatives, but you're prepared, aren't you, Nick, for this? Okay. And you do have copies of the bonding agreements in your packet?
Yep. So you should have 2 bond agreements for the projects we just let. After we award them, we have some paperwork we send into the state, and they calculate exactly how much they're gonna put towards it. So we have those numbers updated. They're in these agreements, and there's a resolution we need in the back of each of these. They're longer agreements, but it's just the standard wording that we have to approve to get the bond money.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve.
Do we need to approve these separately, or can we pass both at the same time? Separate motions?
Oh, yeah, we can do them both together, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll second it, if that's for both, okay.
Okay, so a motion second approve bond agreements SAP 059-616-036 and SAP 059-616-034. Any further discussion?
And Mr. Chairman, those will be resolution number 59-35-19 for SAP 059-616-034 and resolution 59-36-19 for SAP 059-616-036.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, any other questions for me? That's all I had.
I don't have anything, so thanks, Nick.
Yep.
See you back at 10:30.
Yep.
All right, is there any other, one,
Oh, thanks, appreciate that, I'll get that.
move on to personnel or any other business?
Yeah.
Okay,
Nothing today?
no personnel? Okay.
Maybe the Prime West update.
Prime West update? We can do that. Like to move.
Prime West update? Two things with that, Mr. Chairman. We received an email from Mr. Prisbill on October 14th regarding the proposed November 14th Legislative Summit. You have a copy of that in your packet as well. That summit is being canceled. Unfortunately, they were unable to get enough legislators to come to that session, so they decided that they would cancel it. So they're going to postpone that and then deal with it through the 2020 legislative session. And if they come up with anything else, they'll let us know as the counties as well. So you don't have to worry about going to Carlos Creek, Alexandria on the 14th of November at this time. So, so just a point of information on that. And I do have, if we would like to, I do have the second amended and restated Healthcare Access Initiative Joint Powers Agreement. I did have County Attorney Sandy review this. He emailed me back last night and said the agreement is in good form and can be approved at the meeting today.
Okay.
So that would be the second amended and restated Healthcare Access Initiative Joint Powers Agreement. The reason this is coming back to us now is this is for all of the member counties who are currently with Prime West and also for the 11 expansion counties. They will have another agreement that goes along with this, but all the counties involved in Prime West are asked to approve this joint powers agreement this time. So motion would be in order.
On page 2, there was one little typo error that I'll mention.
Where'd you see it?
At the top of the page.
Missing the other parenthesis.
Oh, the backward by the DHS?
Yep.
Okay. I'll go ahead and fix that.
Other than that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve the amended joint powers agreement. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's jump back up to the flooding update.
Sure. Sounds good. There's some things I've been working on the flooding scene from the September 10th through the 15th flood. First thing is there was a preliminary damage assessment meeting with the state officials last week. Pipestone County sustained over $221,000 in damage from that flooding event. The county itself was approximately $137,000 in road damages to public infrastructure just for that, for ourselves. And there were 6 other townships involved in that, so the flooding was significant. And this would qualify us for a state disaster, which means the state will cover 75% of the approved damages, and the county would be responsible for the other 25% of ours. So 75% of the 137 would be covered, and we would cover the other 25% of that. And the township's the same way. Casey did email me and said there is one more township that needs to get their information, so that 221 will be a little bit higher. I'm not sure which township it is, but there will be a little more damage to that. So we did qualify for a state disaster, but it was not enough for a federal FEMA disaster. So that's why the state put this program in a number of years ago, so that if we had these smaller disasters that we aren't going to qualify for federal, the state has money to help us cover those on a 75-25. So it's a good deal for us to help us pay for some of those infrastructure costs. The spring flood, the March and April floods, that was a federal disaster, so that's still being worked on. So that was in the millions of dollars of damage that was done throughout the state. Beyond that, as far as locally, what we're doing, on September 15th, Representative Schomacher came to the courthouse. Jeff Jones and I met with him. We had a good talk about the flooding. He wanted to come and talk about it because he is unable to attend the 29th meeting. So he wanted to make sure. So we gave him some background information on the flooding. He is willing to help whatever possible way he can, obviously. but just was unable to come to the meeting. And he did request that he would get a list of the contact names and phone numbers of the residents that came to the meeting so that he could contact them and talk to them. So he was receptive to that. He just was unable to show up. So he did make the effort to meet with us. So like I said, he's got some good information going back in all the flooding we had. I presented information back from the '93 flood and moving forward, just so he knows problems with the issues that we're having here. So he is aware of it and is sympathetic to what's going on, but is limited to what he can do as a single representative, especially when it comes to FEMA and that type of thing on the federal level. Beyond that, I had email contacts with Lauren Blasek out at the monument. The last email I got from her, she's, and I'm sure she'll talk about this at the meeting as well, is concerned about water quality, that the water that goes through the ditch to the monument, and is wanting to make sure that there are buffer strips in place and all that, where we're trying to hold the water as best we can. And according to law, each berm on the side of the ditch has to have, if I remember, at a 16.5-foot grass strip before it goes into the ditch as well. And plus, we are talked to Kyle about it, and he's working with Nicole, and the county is approximately 90% compliant with the buffer strip law that we have now. So I'm confident that we have a pretty good handle on the buffers on this, but I'll work with Kyle on that, so he'll be involved with that as well. Beyond that, I did reach out to one of our local plumbers, Jamie Reek at Stout and Eving, just to quiz him on how much it would cost if a resident wanted to put in a one-way valve in their basement to stop any type of backflow from sewer. And he said most commonly the cost would be between $600 and $700. Everyone's, situation is a little bit different, but he was confident that for less than $1,000, a resident could put in a backflow preventer on their sewer to prevent sewer water and storm water from coming up their basement floor drains and toilets. So that was another option that we talked about at our meeting when we were talking to the public as well. And had contact from Bill Weber. Senator Weber will be coming to the meeting. He has a meeting in the cities. He will be here at approximately 7 o'clock when we get going on. He may be a little late, but Senator Weber will be here for the meeting, so he'll be here to talk. Checked with Jeff Jones. He checked with his water people, Joel, and checked with the engineering firm. They use Bolton and Mink as well. They went and inspected the backflow gates that were discussed at the meeting as well, where they are meant to close when the water is high and not let water backflow, and he said they are working properly. So that issue is apparently not an issue. We just have so much water. So that's just a little bit of things we have been working on, and we'll be sharing this information again on the 29th with the public and listen to them as they come in and restate their concerns, and if there are any new concerns, we'll take it up with them too. The city is receptive also, and we'll work with the county on dredging 9th Street to North Hiawatha. So that's pretty much intact. The city's willing to take out the trees. The ditch committee has gone forward and said they'll request to the board that we're going to clean that part of the ditch. I measured it out with pictometry. It's about 3,300 feet we'd be looking at. And I did talk to Lauren Blasek at the monument to see if she would allow us to do any dredging on the west side of the Hiawatha Avenue Bridge. And she was going to check with her superiors to see if that would be okay. But if we could do approximately, 300 to 400 feet would get us to about the old right-of-way from the old Rock Island Bridge that used to go through there. I think we could get some more of that cleaned out if they would allow that, because that would be on monument property. So I haven't heard back from her on that at this time. So that's a possibility as well. Engineer Bergman reached out to MnDOT and found out that the new bridge that will be going in, that's going out for bid in December, the Highway 75 bridge, is rated at approximately 3,250 cubic feet per second of water through that, which is approximately a 100-year flood event.
Do you know what the current bridge is?
No, I do not.
1,200 or something like that?
So basically, if it's 1,200, it's about a 10-year flood event then.
I feel
It's
like
pretty
this
minimal.
one is 2.5 times what's
Yeah.
or something like that.
So will that create additional issues, knowing that the 9th Street Bridge is where it starts backing up?
I don't think so, because what's feeding it is gonna channels cleaned out, or that wouldn't be
Yeah.
allowed.
Nick, do you want to come up?
Sure.
Yeah, just so we get you on the record here.
Nick, do you have any thoughts on what the railroad bridge there is rated at? Because that's also right there. That's kind of is damming it up somewhat, isn't it? That's more restrictive than the other bridges, the way it looks.
Right, I don't know what that railroad bridge is
It
rated
appears
at.
to be smaller.
Seems like every time we have these events, it gets plugged with all kinds of debris, too. It's-
Right, I'm guessing I probably wouldn't hear back from him if we asked him either.
I looked through all the records I could find from the 2000, or the 1995. I read through those several times and found nothing that said the rating of it, but both of the documents do state that the railroad bridge and the Highway 23 bridge act as a backflow, and we'll slow it down just because they can't take that much through it. So, but as far as what it can take, I don't know, I presume it's limited to probably similar to what the Highway 75 bridge is at 1,000 to 1,200 cubic feet a second. It's hard to know exactly.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they have data like that on that bridge, so I wouldn't expect to get any info back. I did hear back from MnDOT this morning. I asked them to clean out that outtake ditch, and they're working on it. They're talking with the maintenance crew. They don't have a timeline yet, but he said he'd get back to me as soon as he has one. So sounded like they're willing to do it, so that's good.
And Mr. Chairman, I did speak with the landowner, Mr. Leroy Gorder, who owns the land directly adjacent to the outtake ditch, and he was agreeable to let that be dredged out, as long as he didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, but he was agreeable to that and would allow access to do that. So if the county highway department, we can talk about that at a later time, but, you know, that's not the ditch. It's not part of the judicial ditch. That's a different project. But the MnDOT outtake ditch appears to end at the property line of his easterly property line. It's government lot 9 is what it's listed as in the plat information. So, and that's about, what do we figure, 800 feet? Somewhere in there, approximately?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
We looked, but I
Yeah.
don't remember anymore.
But it would help divert some water that otherwise would go to the judicial ditch. Or, you know, either way it's gonna get there, but it'd be closer to where it's going out of town instead of in town.
It can't hurt, and if you look at that thing, it's in bad shape with all the trees in it. It's terrible, so it needs a lot of work.
Nick and I did talk about it. We just want to make sure we don't turn it into something that will backflow back to the east as well, so.
Right, we gotta kind of watch the elevation where that outtake ditch goes into the county ditch, because say if we drop that down to match a flow line and then run straight grade back, well, it's gonna sit full of water a ways back, and we don't really want that, but I haven't been able to find anything that talks about any elevation control. So I don't really know where to go from there. We'd almost have to take a guess at it or something, I suppose, but.
Does anyone know off the hand how the shape of the Pipestone Creek is on the monument side? If my memory serves me correct, I think there's a lot of trees and everything right up to that too. So I mean, if they have concerns about the buffer, this and that, I mean, they're not doing us any favors on the other side of the bridge. I mean, we can do all these improvements on the other side, but I see a big problem when it gets to that bridge, then the Hiawatha Bridge too, if we can't clean out.
We've got you've got measurements on the elevations of the bridges at the water line. Didn't Dave do that back?
Yeah, I believe so.
We do have elevation shots on that, I think.
Yep, and we're gonna contact the monument probably Thursday. We'd like to go out there and shoot the falls, so we have an elevation on that, because if that's gonna be where it is, there's no point in digging it any deeper back farther. It's just gonna hold water and silt right back in. It's a waste of money to do that, so that's probably our controlling point, but by the end of the week, I hope to know more about that and what we can do then. So.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a little bit of an update of what we're working on anyway.
It's a very good update, thanks, Steve. So, okay, thanks, Nick. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we can do the 2020 CHIPS. You have one copy in there. I have the contract back from Smith & Johnson. What this is for child protection legal services in court. This is the county's responsibility. This is the same contract we had last year for 2019. Only difference is that the dates changed. County Attorney Sandy reviewed this as well. The rates are the same. We're at, if you look at the bottom of page 1 under 4, the county shall pay the attorney a flat sum of $1,250 per month for up to 20 hours per month of services rendered, and will pay an additional rate of $90 per hour for hours in excess of 20 hours per month. It's the same rate we had last week, and it also matches up with the other counties in the district as well. To date, we have spent $39,861 on legal defense out of the court budget for these services. And we budgeted $60,000 for it last year. We budgeted $55,000 for it this year. And remember when Administrator Brandell came down, she was talking about this to us, and these just costs continually can go up. So they're getting more complicated and takes time, and we need the professionals to do this. So this contract is for Smith & Johnson, and I will have a second one for Ranchi Luaji Law Firm. When I get that one signed, I'll bring that back for action at that time. So I would request a motion to accept this legal services contract with Smith & Johnson for the year 2020.
Chair, so moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I did see Kyle is in. Are you ready? We did move on to other business, so if you're ready, we can go ahead and squeeze you in. Oh, yeah.
Do you have anybody coming, Kyle, for this? Other
as far as I
than
know,
this
I
nice
don't-
gentleman here, I'm sorry. Not expecting like a contingent of the public or anything yet?
No, we didn't receive much we received some comments last night at the hearing, but not a
Okay.
lot, so.
There's probably a dozen people there last night.
I remember your name, is it Tim? Tim from our DGR is here with us also. And today we're bringing the first item for action is the environmental assessment that we did for the L&O power line that's going to be located from Pipestone north to the Holland substation. And we first need to take action on that environmental review. Preferably, last night, the recommendation of the Planning Commission was for the board to approve a negative declaration, which would basically mean that L&O would not be required to proceed with environmental impact statement, which would be the next step if we found it to be a positive declaration. So the board minutes need to reflect action on that environmental assessment prior to the county taking action on the conditional use permit for the power line. So I don't know, there was no comments received from the environmental assessment that was completed and published in the EQB Monitor. So that was put out there for the public. The agencies reviewed it, and they were able to send comments if they had any pertaining to the environmental assessment, but there were none received.
Chairman, did any board members receive anything
I have not.
from any residents or anything of that? Okay.
And I feel the environmental assessment adequately identified all environmental concerns. There were very minimal impact pertaining to environmental concerns with the power line.
John Deere, that used to goes like this.
No, I know we've gone over this before, and I see it only as an improvement. I mean, we're getting
Right.
the poles out of the farmer's land and everything too, so.
Yep.
All right, but do we have a motion?
I'd move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then the next thing would just be taking action on their conditional use permit. We had the planning commission take care of that last night again. They made a recommendation for the county board to approve with the base conditions, that the project be completed as proposed and that all of their state, federal, local permit requirements be met. There were a few questions from the public as far as if the power lines were to drop or do anything like that for, safety concerns, and it was explained from DGR that everything would basically shut down. It's all computerized, and I don't know, Tim, if you have anything further to add?
I know they can backfeed the system so the power stays on for as many people as possible.
They were concerned about safety if some power line got loose and fell on somebody's house or something, but the representative explained that there's triggers and fuses, it's got circuit breakers and safety built into it.
Right.
The line goes down, so.
And the project is planned to be started, if everything goes as planned, starting in January, done by May. If they don't get the removal of the old line done through that time period, they'll be waiting until after harvest next year to get it done. So I think from a landowner perspective, L&O and DGR has contacted most all the producers. Everyone is aware of what's going on, what's being proposed. And I think there's minimal opposition at all. So I think they're doing everything they can to accommodate the landowners.
It sounded like there was one individual yet that had not.
Yep, one
signed up
parcel
for
of
the
land,
thing.
correct.
Yeah, but otherwise it was,
That parcel of land, the owners are in Portland and Florida, so hard to get a hold of them.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the conditional use permit. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The only other thing I've got is, 2 weeks ago, we had talked, about the issues up north with the drainage. I did talk with DNR, got into their records in St. Paul. Back in 1980, when they were doing these public water inventories, it sounds like all of the waters in Pipestone County were appealed. There were public hearings held, and at that time, there was records identifying that stretch of the stream that was not going to be required to be part of the public waters inventory. So DNR basically confirmed that they are not going to be changing the 1980 records of the public waters inventory for that stretch of the stream. So the only way that we would be able to require that quarter section to be buffered is if we did it through our other waters adoption. So the Soil and Water put together a other waters document that the county board accepted, and we will incorporate into our water plan when we do the update in the near future. That would give us the authority to do that. If you recall, that definition is somewhat vague, and it talks about waters of surface origin that flow 50% of the time or greater. So if we can use that definition to identify that stretch of stream, we could require a buffer through that means. Otherwise, it would be at the voluntary,
Does it typically run all the time, or most of the time, or?
I think it runs majority of the time, but I'm not positive. I haven't been up there. I'm not up there on a daily basis, so can't say.
Well, this year with the rains, it probably does, but some
Right.
years it's gonna be dry, but
Right.
does the landowner not have any interest in doing it voluntarily? And
I haven't talked to the landowners for quite a number of years, so that's something I would maybe start by doing.
Both, it would certainly make sense to
Right.
at least talk to them and encourage them, say, hey, look, there's an issue here, we'd like to see if you would.
Yeah. But it's not gonna, I just wanted to confirm with you that it's something the state is not going to address or change.
Well, thanks for the update on that.
So, yeah.
Did they give any reasoning why, when it's public water both above and below?
They said it was a county board proceeding that confirmed that stretch wouldn't be public water. So I don't know.
It was more of a local decision at the time.
Correct. It was, the county board was opposing all public waters at that time. And somehow that stretch was determined not to be public waters because of the drainage area. Based on the SCS, which is now NRCS, it was less than 2 square miles of drainage area above, and that the drainage corridors above that were primarily waterways also. So that was their determination. So evidently, maybe in Lincoln, it was never appealed, and therefore it was just left on because there was no opposition. I don't know, I wasn't around, and
Sure.
I didn't care about waters in 1980 too much. So.
Not after coming out of the dry 70s.
Right.
But yeah, there's records and history of all that stuff that happened, so that's what they're using as a basis.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Oh, I should let you know too, I did order, we're getting 4 new sheds built for the recycling, and they should be basically done this week, I'm thinking, and they'll be delivered, so Jasper will get theirs, and you can let the city know that they can keep that old one.
Okay.
And then we'll be selling the other 3 at Livermont auction, assuming he's okay with that in the future.
But you say they'll be delivered next week?
I'm hoping so. Yep, so we're gonna get it done this fall. We
before
planned to do it
the-
last year, but nothing that came to be, so yeah, we're just a year late.
Inform them at the city.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess our next order of regular business is at 10:30 with MnDOT representative, so moving on to other business, I guess we could talk about the Flood Task Force Committee, adding that? Or taking action on that at this time?
Yes, I'm going to recommend that we add the Flood Task Force Committee again to the county committees.
Okay.
If we could, that would include both you.
I thought we took action on that, we must not have, we must have.
I looked back, I didn't see that we did that. It's not really a ditch committee meeting, but we have ditch members there, and we just want to make sure that everybody is making sure that the per diems are correct on this, so we don't have an issue with that, because it is an important issue that we need to take care of, and I think it's going to be ongoing for some time. That's my recommendation anyway, we do that.
I'll make that motion, but I thought we'd done it already too.
I
thought,
don't recall, do you remember seeing it in the minutes anywhere?
Or do you
The Flood
want to
Task
do it
Force?
Forever.
well,
I don't think it's gonna drag on forever.
No, a
A
year?
year at a time,
That'd be fine.
and then we can renew it, and that, then you.
Look
We
at it next
renew
year.
all of our
Some of these
committees
things
every
get-
year anyway in
Get
January.
started, and then they just kind of go on forever, but if we could do it for a year at a
I
time.
could make the motion, redo the motion to make it through 2020.
There we go,
Yeah.
let's do that.
I'll second that.
We have a motion second, approve the Flood Task Force Committee through 2020. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business we have at this time? Okay,
Right now, Mr. Chairman.
guess we'll take a recess until MnDOT representatives are able to make it, so.
Okay.
Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting. Next up, we have the MnDOT representatives go over the 2020 CHIP plan presentation. I'm not sure who's coming forward, so I'll let you introduce yourself. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, thank you for inviting us. Maybe first we can just introduce ourselves. I think I've met at least a couple of you over the years. I'm John Hughesby. I am district engineer with MnDOT. So MnDOT's got 8 districts. I'm responsible for this 12-county district in southwest Minnesota.
I'm Cody Brand, soils engineer for District 8, but what I primarily do is kind of pavement management, pavement selection.
And I'm Megan DeShepper. I'm out of the planning office in Wilmer at District 8.
Welcome to Pipestone County.
Well, what we're trying to do is go around to every county and visit with every county board. And usually it's primarily Megan. And my schedule limits me a little bit, but I really try to hit a few of them if I can each year. So I'm glad to be here. And what we cover primarily is looking at what we call our CHIP, which is our Capital Highway Improvement Plan. So that's our 10-year plan. And then also talk about our 4-year plan, which is the State Highway Improvement Plan. For a district, it's the area transportation improvement plan, but anyhow, that rolls up. And those are the things that the Area Transportation Partnership talks about, and the Area Transportation Partnership, ATP 8, makes recommendation to MnDOT basically for which projects should receive federal funds. But what we'll go over is ones that have both state and federal funds, and we want to give you an opportunity to give us some feedback on any of those projects. I think Megan will kind of highlight the ones that are in this area a little bit. And then also just to leave some time for any questions that you might have and discussion you want, so.
Thank you.
No.
Mr. Chair, may I pass out?
Absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you have two maps in front of you. The first one that's labeled the Area Transportation Improvement Program 2020 to 2023. Those are more commitments. Those have been scoped. Those projects have been. They're not as likely to change as something further out. Those first 4 years are, we've worked through those and they're more focused and ready to be funded and to be done. The second map that I passed, or that Cody passed out to you, is labeled Capital Highway Investment Plan at the top, 2024 to 2029. That's, those outer years are more fluid. The limits of those projects could be changed. The pavement fixes could be changed. Sometimes where they start or stop can be changed, and of course it all is dependent on funding that far out. We don't know if they're all gonna be funded how we think that they'll be. So I'll go over the projects that are in your area. On that first map, the 2020 to 2023, the first project is number 11 on your map in red. It's in 2020. It's a bridge replacement on US 75 just north of the junction of Highway 23 here in Pipestone. And that's the only project in those first 4 years that are actually in your county. We have several in the next map on the CHIP, the Capital Highway Investment Plan. In 2024, if you look in, that's kind of a yellow color. Number 3 on your map, it's Highway 23. It's a mill and overlay from US 75 in Pipestone to nearly 2 miles north of Minnesota Highway 91. And then also number 5 on your map, also in yellow, is Highway 30. It's 2 bridge replacements over a stream crossing, and that's 3.5 miles west of the Pipestone County and Murray County line. The next project would be in 2026, number 17. It's kind of a brown on your map. That's US Highway 75, and that's a pavement fix from Pipestone Creek in Pipestone to the South Valley Street in Lake Benton. And then the last project is in 2028. It's number 29 on your map, kind of a light green color, and that's also on US Highway 75. From Pipestone, Rock County line to Highway 30 in Pipestone. So you got a lot of things going on in those outer years. And so I can entertain any questions or.
I guess regarding that first one, the mill and overlay from Pipestone to Russell, I would really like to see that done in concrete rather than asphalt. You know, we could go out and look at some of the mill and overlays that have been done in the last 1 to 3 years locally here on 30 and 75, and frankly, they're just as bad as they were before you did them. And I just don't, it seems to me like a waste of money. You know, I mean, the portion in town that was done just 1 year ago, I mean, already has holes and, you know, looks like you drove a semi on during road restrictions, you know, in front of Snyder Drug. And I know there was a number of holes they filled on either side of McDonald's, and you know, whether you're going south on 75, which was done, 3 years ago or so, and or on 30 going to Slayton. You know, I mean, the cracks came through after a year, and after a few years, you know, it just seems to get worse and worse. And for the millions of dollars spent, it just seems like, you know, we'd rather have a better fix done right once rather than, you know, a Band-Aid fix that, you know, then we won't, get anything more done for decades yet.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So as far as the rural segments, how we choose what we do to them is kind of based off of a couple of factors. We do a life cycle cost analysis, so we look at how the pavements performed previously and try and estimate how long we expect our fix to last. And then we do a cost estimate with that. And so we base, the expected life and then the cost for that expected life. And what we do then is compare that to a couple other options. So we typically compare that to like some sort of bituminous reconstruct, whether that's like reclaiming the pavement, grinding it all up and putting all new layer on it, or something very substantial like that. So that's one thing that we compare it to. And then we also compare it to concrete. And that would either be milling off some of the pavement and just building concrete up from there. And we give, what we do then is we assume that that bituminous pavement that's reconstructed is gonna last 20 years before the first rehabilitation project, so the next resurfacing. And we expect that the concrete is gonna last 35 years before we do any sort of major concrete repairs, going out, patching panels and that sort of stuff. And so using all that, then we come up with what is the annual cost of each pavement type, per year, and we select the lowest cost pavement. And so, I can speak to like Highway 30 that had an 1.5-inch overlay going east of here. And so realistic expectations are that, yes, it's gonna crack right away. That's in Minnesota. If you have cracks underneath and you're doing less than, 4 or 5 inches of new bituminous, it's gonna come through. And it stays smooth in most experiences. Our thin projects, we get 10 to 12 years out of them. Our medium projects, we get 15 to 17 years out of them. And they will require maintenance. They're gonna require patching, but that's all added into the analysis. We come up with patching costs and when we're gonna apply those. So it all goes into the analysis, and then, we select the lowest cost. And I agree, if you were to do a larger pavement fix, it would last longer. That's undoubtable, but it would also cost significantly more. And so when you have to manage the entire network and try to, balance the pavement smoothness all over the place, we have to sometimes select lower or lesser design life fixes that are also cheaper in cost. And so that's kind of the balance that we're always trying to play. Now, there's some other factors that go into it too, as far as traffic levels or, level of service. We want to maintain a higher level of service on our pavements that get more use than other pavements. So those are some of the other factors that kind of also contribute other than just the cost.
You take into account, where we have more overweight vehicles, whether either ag or the wind tower projects, it just seems like we have a lot more, larger or overweight vehicles using the roads in the area.
Farm equipment's,
Right, where, they used to use gravity wagons, now they all got a fleet of semis or whatever, and, then throw on a bunch of wind turbine hauling and,
Yeah, so we do traffic forecast when we do all of our pavement designs, and so that factors into how long we expect the pavement to last. So depending on how long we're designing the pavement for, we'll go out and we'll collect the traffic volumes, and not just passenger vehicles, but we do differentiate between different vehicle loads too. And we use all of that and come up with one final calculation that kind of represents all of the loads that are going on the pavement, since, yes, your semis are significantly more damaging than your passenger vehicles. So that all goes into a traffic forecast to help with the pavement design.
And we manage our pavement system statewide. So So every year, there's a van that drives over every pavement on the state highway system and scientifically measures the roughness and the number of cracks, all those kind of things, and forecasts the degradation that's expected of each pavement. And we have to, for federal money, we have to maintain a certain level of roads in good condition and above, and can only tolerate so much in poor condition. And there's a couple classifications of roadway. If we don't do that, we can get penalized and ironically money held back so that we couldn't fix them, so that's when, in part what you're saying too, Cody, in terms of looking around the state, it's not just around the district, but that pavement management is done statewide.
Right.
So our program actually varies a little bit because of that.
Like, say next year you're gonna do Cottonwood to Granite Falls in concrete.
Yep.
What is different there than this stretch here?
Yeah, I could talk to that. So that Cottonwood to Granite Falls piece is what we call full-depth bituminous. So in the 70s, 80s, some of the pavements that were reconstructed, and particularly a lot of our high-volume routes, 23, 212, Highway 12, they went through and they regraded it, they worked all the soil up, and then because at that time bituminous was so cheap, they did not put aggregate base down, they just built it up with 12, 14, 16 inches of bituminous. And so part of pavement design is we want that gravel layer to get the water out away from the bottom of our pavement. And so that starts deteriorating from the bottom up, from 30, 40 years now that it's been out there, and it's performed adequately or, well in the beginning, and now adequately, and now very poorly. And so what we're doing is removing a little bit of the top and putting the concrete above that where it's less susceptible to the effects of drainage. And so that's really the best thing that we can do on that roadway. And that's where we look at, the history of each of our roadways. And that would also be a good fix on 23 from Pipestone to Russell. But the difference there is that pavement was redone in the 70s and they put in aggregate base. And then in the 2000s, 2002 and 2000, they did projects on there where they replaced all of the bituminous all the way down to the aggregate base. And so even though there's cracks, the bottom of the bituminous is in a lot better condition than the other one that is all deteriorated from the bottom up. And so if we were to mill and overlay the other one, we might get 12 years of life, where if we mill and overlay the section from Pipestone up to Russell, we might get 15, 16 years of life, even though those mill and overlays cost the same amount. Now, if we do concrete on both of them, they still cost the same amount. You're replacing the pavement, and you still get the same amount of life. And so that's where when we look at a network, it makes more sense to, spend the same amount of money on a mill and overlay on a road where it's going to perform better, and do that larger fix on that road that really is not going to perform well if we do a small fix. So dollar-wise, that's kind of how we have to balance. We have to look at which ones are going to perform the best with the least possible fix, and which ones absolutely can't take a small fix.
And then the life cycle cost analysis, obviously, is
Yep.
part of all that. So we annualize the costs, bring it all back to, so you can compare the bituminous and the asphalt and the concrete on an annualized cost. One of them, you're going to have to do less maintenance on over the next 20, 30 years. And one, you're going to have to do a little more. You bring all those costs in, back it up to an annual cost.
I just struggle with the fact after the Cottonwood to Granite Falls stretch is done, basically from Clara City to I-90 is gonna be all concrete except from Russell to Jasper. And I think back to, 10 years ago, and for 3 years in a row, our district's money went to help pay for the Painesville bypass, which was in concrete, but not even in our district. You know, it would be nice to have some concrete in return on this end of things when, you know, we basically helped fund that. And I mean, it was needed, I understand all that, but it just seems like kind of we're getting the short end somehow that, I realize we're farther out and.
Yeah, that really has nothing to do with it, though, Commissioner. I mean, it, you know, it gets down to the annualized costs, and you know, the Painesville bypass, you know, helps Southwest Minnesota and all of us more than it helps the St. Cloud area probably, and that, you know, that improvements really helped freight movement for manufacturers in the area and things like that. The you know, they're both good products. You know, they both have performed well, asphalt and concrete. It's kind of like at home, if there's no, you know, no cap on the cost, you might put a different roof on than.
And I mean, I realize that your funding from the state is woefully inadequate. Obviously, if they were funding it the way they should, you could probably do a lot of things different.
Yeah.
You know, one other thing I just want to touch on is you view concrete really highly because when we build concrete, there's no in-between fix. There's no thin concrete that we're using, and so you're getting really good performance out of it. But there is equally well-performing bituminous solutions, and a medium mill and overlay is not going to be equal to concrete. So I'm not trying to argue that, but
Right.
you know, just keep in mind that there are bituminous fixes that can perform equally well. You need to remind yourself that a lot of times what you're seeing of bituminous is a much, much lesser fix, and if you did the same, you know, spent the same amount of money on the bituminous fix, you could get a really nicely performing road as well.
And what thickness is a medium?
So we go anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, and why we use the terminology medium and thin is so that it can allow some flexibility in the design as it gets closer, that we can kind of, you know, shuffle money a little bit because we're choosing these projects 10 years out. And
I understand.
But this one is this a 4-inch?
This one will be a 3-inch mill and overlay.
3-inch mill and overlay.
So it'll be twice as thick as the 1.5 inch that you put on that after 1 year was shot. I don't know how much longer that will last, but it still doesn't seem like a lot.
1.5's a Band-Aid.
It
I
is.
mean, that's, you know, that's trying to hold things together and
Right.
with very limited funding, and
It'll perform like, you know, the passing lane sections that we built. There's areas that we milled and overlaid across the entire width. That was a 2-inch mill and overlay, so it'll perform better than that. But yes, you can see the cracks through it, and you know, cracks are, like I said, they're a reality of Minnesota. But if you sit as a passenger and you don't look at the cracks, and you just feel the smoothness of it, you know, it's a smooth performing section in there, even though that there's cracks. So I would compare the performance similar to that, or the mill and overlay that we did south of Pipestone on Highway 23. That's what the realistic expectation of it will be.
Mhm. And if additional funding were to be able to be obtained, would there be openness to changing the plan?
I would have to say there's so many ifs with that. I mean, how much funding, when does it need to be spent? Can you spend it on projects you already have in the program? It's too open of a question really to give a good answer.
you know, in the old days, we used to get the money in the district and we'd decide where to spend it all. Pavement-wise and bridge-wise, we manage those on a statewide basis. So that's, you know, part, and then the life cycle cost analysis has some thresholds, but part of it is legislated that we have to, in statute, that we have to do the life cycle cost analysis. So in some cases, we have to live with whatever that is, more or less,
Right.
too. But I think what I would say is that this is good input, and we'll keep it in mind as we move forward. We call upscoping kind of, as I think what you're asking for, Commissioner
Right.
Johnson. I mean, that's, and there are times that we're able to upscope some projects with additional funding. Hasn't happened very often, but not 100% out of the question, I guess.
Highway 75's always had traditionally a crappy highway because there's old concrete underneath it.
Correct.
And every time you overlay it, within a few months, it's bumpy again.
We
I
went
know
through a,
District 7 is hopefully sometime gonna do it from our county line to Laverne, which is out of your area, but the road is a disaster down there, and from our county line up this way, we redid it about 3 years ago, but within a year, the old cracks and a lot of the bumps are back again, and I watched a little bit as they did that when I traveled back and forth, and I think they did a very poor job of doing it. Now, I don't know how you determine quality control on some of those projects, but I don't even think some of that road was milled.
it was not.
I think
No,
they just
was
put it
a-
over the
It was an
top.
overlay.
And I saw areas where they didn't, sometimes they'll spray a tacking something on the road when they put the new mat over it, and I don't think they did that.
I could talk to about that project too.
Sometimes you can try to cut corners and do it too cheap, and you're just kind of waste your money. I think maybe that was one of those cases where it could have better waited a year or two and put an extra inch on it or something and did a little better job with it, but. I'm not opposed to good asphalt roads. We've got some really good asphalt roads in our county, I think. We've got some that were rebuilt, and underneath is really good, and they, you seal coat them and they last. But those old roads with concrete under them, I don't think there's a short-term good
No, I would
answer to
agree
that,
with-
because they just crack up again because of the old concrete under there.
We went through a time where we did a lot of 1.5-inch overlays because we had really limited budget. But if you look through here, we really don't have 1.5-inch overlays proposed anywhere around our district, because we're trying to get out of that and do the longer term fixes. And if you look at that Highway 75 segment, we are actually going to do what's called a cold in place recycle. So we're going to mill all the way down to the concrete,
Okay.
remix all
Next
that
time,
with new
the cold in place
bituminous.
would be a more in-depth job than we had last time.
It will be much more in-depth. It'll perform a lot better. Again, you still have the concrete underneath that's going to come through at some point, but it's got to come through 6-7 inches now of new pavement that's not cracked. And those roads, we have I believe 40% of our roads that have 1930s concrete underneath it. And when you remove that, you have to dig down,
You gotta take it
rebuild everything back up, and we're talking multi-million dollars, and so those are particularly
hard
difficult
to work
to
with.
work with.
What about from our county line to Laverne? You don't know what they're planning to do? I think that's scheduled in 2025, if I remember right, but
I'm not sure what's
probably will be a
proposed.
Band-Aid similar to what we had.
It says cold in place, recycle. In 20
You're talking in Rock County,
Right, yeah,
so,
it's out
yeah,
of your
I'm
area, so, right.
I'm not sure. I can get back to you on that, though.
It's actually kind of bad down there,
Yes.
but yeah, you don't have to worry about it. I just thought maybe you had some idea what they were doing there.
No, I would agree. There's been a lot of 1.5-inch overlays around here that have shown poor performance. We are really trying to
Like
get
Luke
out of that.
mentioned, we've got more trucks on the road now in our part of the
Lot of
state here
trucks,
than we used to. I think truck traffic has doubled or maybe tripled in the last 20 years here. It's just gone through the roof with all the farmers and
All the hogs.
companies and the livestock we have down here. There's just a lot of big trucks on the road now.
Mhm.
That does take its toll on them too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we have thousands and thousands of hogs leaving the county every day. I mean,
We want more money for our roads, but we want to pay less in taxes. So you just figure that out.
Well, if you guys have any other questions for me, you know, you can always give me a call, reach out to me. I really enjoy these type of discussions because I like to talk about pavements. So if anybody wants to talk about that with me, I'm.
Well, it sounds like you
all
know
ears.
you have the answer, so that's great. So we appreciate that,
Yes.
so.
And we're trying to help the tax base here a little bit too. Cody's position normally reports in Wilmer,
Okay.
and he's doing such a great job, and it's one of those that we can enable to work remotely somewhat. So Cody lives in Pipestone. Yeah.
So I can.
So it's our
I'm right here.
contribution, yeah.
Eddie just looked up your question for District 7, and it's in 2025 they're
I
doing
thought it
that
was in
section.
25.
Yeah. What's the
What are they
fix?
gonna do with it?
It's a cold in place recycle and overlay, which will be what we're gonna do to the north in just a few years
That'll be the 6
after.
to 7 inch.
I don't know the specifics of how deep they're going, but if, you know, my guess would be that they're gonna do 3 to 4 inches, milling down to that concrete, recycling it, add new bituminous, and then put another 2 to 3 inch overlay on top of that, so
That
you
sounds
get,
better than what we had up here.
it'll
a
be
few
much
years
better.
ago, but, yeah.
You're gonna, you know, again, you're gonna see reflective cracks that eventually come through from the concrete, and we just can't stop that in Minnesota, but it'll be a much better performing fix than what you guys had
So if you're
previously
in Pipestone,
seen.
you're available to come and visit us more frequently.
Right, you just let me know when.
all right.
So is it a lot of money to go from this medium mill and overlay to this cold in-place recycle?
It's a whole nother 3-4 inch layer that you're paying for, so there's some cost to that, yep.
So it'd be about double, roughly.
A good 60% extra, I would say.
And do you know the approximate cost for that project currently?
I do not know.
Don't have it.
Not off the head.
Estimate. For the Russell to Pipestone mill and overlay,
I should know, but I forget.
In here, right? Yep. What year is it?
2020.
For example, the one that's closer to construction on 23 Granite Falls to Cottonwood, that one's estimated to be $28 million. It's 17 miles, I think about 4, a little over 4 is 4-lane. So it gets bendy. It's a good $1 million a mile usually for concrete.
So this is, we've got it estimated at 11.1 million for that section of Highway 23 in 2024. For 30.1 miles, 30.6.
Roughly 350,000 a mile or so.
Okay. Does anybody else have any more questions? Did you guys have anything else they'd like to present
I
on?
might just, if I can, Mr. Chairman, just pass out a little information
Oh,
about the
absolutely.
district, so you have a little sense for what we are, what we do. This is, I can say a little bit too.
Doesn't matter.
That's right. This is what we call a district fact sheet. It's just got a lot of information about the district. You see our annual construction program's about $44 million a year. Our operating budget's about $26 million a year. We plow over 3,000 lane miles in the district. Our average snow plowing length route is 57 miles round trip.
Wow.
So it gets to be pretty long. And we have 1,440 centerline miles roadway. This on one side shows the 8 districts, and this side shows our district 8 boundaries. And we have 4 maintenance sub-areas. And so it gives you a little sense for that as well.
you know how many employees MnDOT has
And, within the district commissioner,
within the state?
You know, in the state?
Yeah, or even in the district, I'd take either.
Yeah. Statewide, I think what this sheet shows is just for the districts.
Right.
And that's about 3,500. We've got, I think here, what is it, about 210 it shows, and 201, I think, but in reality, we have about 210 right now or so. Within the district, there's 6 of us managers. And statewide, MnDOT is right around 5,000 employees.
It's on the back of this sheet on the total 201, this is an 18 and 3505 for statewide, but yeah, there may be
Okay.
some counted there, but.
Yep, that's just the districts, I believe. Which, so, that is the districts, now I think about it, because we're about 72% of the organization are within the districts, including the metro district.
Okay.
But not our central office and some of that.
Well, thank you. This is some good, useful
Thank you.
information.
Thank you for, all of you, for your time, and
Do you have any information on Highway 91? Out east of us, is that gonna get done? Do you know if that's gonna get done this year?
I haven't talked to anyone lately, however,
Kinda getting a late start, right? Maybe it was the weather.
It's, you know, we're paying for part of that job. It's being managed by District 7. I know they're having a lot of challenges out there. And
I live in the
that's all I
southeastern
know.
part of the county, so I get in Rock County in that way, probably more than some of the people that live up here, but, so I'm concerned about the other districts too, but not that I
Yeah.
can do anything about it, but I just, I use those roads more. probably.
Absolutely, and that's one thing with transportation, you know, it doesn't, our boundaries are pretty arbitrary, and we do have a lot of gray areas. I mean, we do projects together like 91. I should have checked on that ahead of time. You probably know more about the status of it than I do right now, but.
At least from 14 to 23 should get done this year on 91, shouldn't it?
I am not sure.
I'm not sure either.
We can check on it.
At least that's what the signs say as you drive by on 23, that they're
They've been having.
expecting you.
Getting going, and their bridge replacements and stuff.
Would it be all right if we got something back to me?
Sure.
I'll share that with you.
Very good. Does anybody else have any more questions or anything?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
And Nick has Cody's number or something in case he needs to talk to him?
I'll have one level of filter.
Very good. Thank you. All right, is there any other business to come before the board? That I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to
Yes.
adjourn. We stand adjourned.
I'm going Les and Bruce. I heard harmony in there.